my webcam seems to be playing up a little bit, so I'll try it with the webcam, and if it fails, I'll have to go back to the laptop.
Yeah, give it a try.
Can you all feel sick now by moving everything around?
My soothing light.
Okay, so come on then, wakey, if it works. Play. Is it going to play? Yeah. There we go. Hedges Hill. Right. So, layout of Hedges Hill is owned by Bentley Mall Railway Group. We've had the layout probably about 10 years now. Obviously, most of you people know who built the layout. That was Graham Hedges. Does this keep fading in and out? It does, doesn't it?
Just move it as slowly as you can.
Yeah. So Graham built the layout probably 25 years ago, I think. Must be something along those lines. The layout denotes, well, just South London, really. There's lots of different areas of South London, all cobbled together to just give an idea, an ambience of South London and where Graham lived. The only building on this layout that is not South London is that brewery there. And it's Panther Ale. Now, apparently, Graham, that's from Manchester, apparently. And Graham liked the beer that much when he was up there that he decided that on his layout, he was going to build a model of the brewery.
Excellent.
Graham likes beer, as attested to what I witnessed yesterday.
Oh, was he drinking?
Yes, he does partake. He is a bit of a just partake in the old ale. Most of the pubs on the layout, like that one there, are pubs that Graham has frequented in his youth. Most of the buildings mean something to Graham on here. Even Hedges Healthcare, food. I think it was something to do with his ex-wife, I believe, which is why I think it says closing down on it, but there we go. As we move back along across this part of the layout, back towards, there's your underground station. And as we move back along, that block of flats at the back there, it's in low relief. I understand from talking to him many years ago, that is a representation of where he was born and brought up. So there's lots of little things on this layout that are unique to Graham and the reason why he built the layout. You'll see a lot of the vehicles on this layout I just plonked on there because I don't have access to the actual vehicles. They belong to somebody else. So there's just a few random vehicles just to make it look not blank, really. The other great thing about this layout is, I can get it all in. That is pretty much it. That is the whole layout. The layout measures 5'6" by 2'6", and it just oozes South London, really. Fiddle yard on the back is a fairly small fiddle yard, but it is big enough to get enough stock in. The only thing that Graham wouldn't let us have when we bought the layout from it was all his electrics, because he was using those for, what was the one he built after this? Oh, name escapes me.
Stony Lane Depot.
Stony Lane Depot, thanks Carl. Yeah, Stony Lane. So he built Stony Lane pretty much at the same time as he was finishing off with this layout. So when Stuart Conlon and I went to pick the layout up, we did try and persuade him to partake, to part with some of his stock, but unfortunately he wouldn't. So what I've tried to do in the time is try and build some myself. So I started with something very simple, a 2 EPB. It's not motorized. It's using Adam War's graphics. So hence the reason why it's pushed by a 73. The other one is the 4 Sig. It's not in focus very well, is it? Is that not in focus for you guys?
No, it's a bit blurry.
Yeah, I don't think this webcam's brilliant. I acquired it when I left Capita. So the 4 Sig, which is motorized using Graham's technique of taking a Farish 170 chassis, chopping the wings off and cutting it down. Fine. Take the body off. Carl will recognise that wonderful chassis.
Yeah, definitely.
And it actually is a very, very good chassis to do that sort of work with, because it's, as you can see, you can adjust the wheelbase on it.
I wish certainly had the head screwed on when they designed that one, with the flexibility of the tower mounting points.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I'm quite lucky with this one because it's a drive shaft one rather than a spring drive as well. I've got a few spring drive chassis, but I daren't even attempt to try and chop that spring down. Can be done, but it needs a certain amount of, I think bottle is the word I'm looking for, to do it, because if you get it wrong, then you completely screw it. Coming out a bit further, got a nice, why has that gone dark all of a sudden? I think this is playing up a little bit. Got an MLV for the Gatwick Express rake, and there's a Gatwick Express like half set, which just fits on the layout nicely. I don't understand why that's gone dark all of a sudden. But anyway, so let me see if I can balance the webcam on the layout. Try and do this without it falling over.
It's not too bad.
Okay, right.
Is that reasonable focus?
Bang. I'll try not to bang the layout then. So let's get some stop running. The points on the rear are all manual. Obviously the ones on the front are motorized, but we don't use them very often. The only ones that we do use are the ones into the loop. Doesn't take very long to run through the sequence on this layout. So there's the 2 EPB set. As I was saying, that's the set that the very first set that I built and did any alterations to, purely for this layout. Although Graham does keep having a go at me and haranguing me because I've not done the roof on it properly yet. And it's one of those things that I really must get round to doing it at some point or other. The next outcome in this way is some nice hoppers that I actually picked up from somebody that we all know and love, Mr. Webb, and he actually did those for me. Come on, typical one thing. He did those, and as is Richard's want, he flogged them very cheaply. They were obviously very expensive, and then he flogged them cheaply. But that is Richard all over. Next thing that I did, something else that I did, is a 4TC. what we intend to do actually is make the layout a bit larger. I'm going to try and move that webcam so much so get more of a side-on view of the stock. No, that's not good, is it? I did have this all organized, and then obviously it's all, because the webcam's playing up, it's all gone a bit hopelessly wrong. Technology, who would work in technology, Ed? Yeah, let's see how that is. So the 4TC set, as I say, did for this layout, and the 4 sig. I had some fun with this the other day because it wouldn't go around the inner curves, because the inner curves on this layout are very tight. They're down sort of 9-inch curves. So I had to strip the whole body down, take the chassis out, and then grind out the wings to make the wings thinner where the bogies pivot, because I'd worked out that it was literally just that was stopping it from going around the curves. Now it's a shame that Mr. Hale hasn't deemed to join us today, because he would obviously have liked this to going around on the layout, which is the reason why I bought the loco, plus these IZAs. Again, because the layout's so small, it's just a representation of the stock that would obviously be running through South London from the Channel Tunnel. Now, this train has actually got some very, very expensive wagons in it, as Carl will probably see as it trundles through. For some bizarre reason, Dutch sea cow, Farish sea cows are fetching ridiculous prices on eBay.
About 80 quid each.
Yeah, although mine will probably be worth a lot less because I've put some stuff in them and I've weathered them. And then
Only we knew someone who could 3D print some, eh?
yeah, if only. And then the Gatwick Express rate. Now, the vinyls for that rate were actually done, well, they're done by Adam War of Electrorail Graphics, but they weren't in his portfolio. He did the early ones, and then he did the 90s ones, with the Gatwick Express swoosh on it, but they weren't the ones that we wanted for the layout. So we managed to get him to do those specific, especially for us. So he did those, and then obviously I applied them to the coaches, which was good advertising for him. And apparently now he's sold quite a few of them since people have seen them on our layout, which is really cool, and it's good for him. So that's the stock. I mean, it doesn't take very long for it to run round, obviously, on such a small layout. But we do normally take a huge box of stuff with us when we go. I have quite a few of these boxes, of John Cox's boxes, of which one of them is purely stock for this layout. The future plans for Hedges Hill are basically, we're going to do that to it. We're going to extend it. Got the idea from Cav's Burton-on-Trent layout, really, where you have a small layout bit that highly detailed, as Hedges is, and then put wings on the side of it. So that's the future plans. We've already started
So is that extension just going to be fiddle yard then, keeping the seating as just to make the fiddle yard bigger?
Yeah, we've already started by cutting big holes in the end of the layout, which is why the lighting rig and that isn't on it, because the mounting screws for the lighting rig actually went in the bit of wood that we've chopped out of there. And we're going to do the same on the other. We've done the same on the other end, and the intention is. So the intention and the layout is to make it bigger, as Carl says, and put a bigger fiddle yard on the back. The fiddle yard that's going to go on the back will be the same size as the scenic section here. The wing that was kind of sat on the back that you saw with the outer rail stock on it, that's going to go. And the board for the fiddle yard for this bit will literally be bolted onto the back, and then there'll be two wings on this side, on either side of the layout. The fiddle yard will then start on those wings, which means that we will pretty much have this whole length here as fiddle yard stock. So what we'll do is split the roads so that we can do call on and then that will allow us more stock. It'll also ease the curves a tremendous amount. On the inner, as you saw, I had a Dapol 50 and a load of Farish Mark 2As in NSC. They're temperamental. I'm amazed they actually went round, because when I was trying it the other day, they go round once, the next time they go round, they all fall off. And that is purely and utterly down to the curves on the layout. It's just, the inner is just too tight for them. I could have put the Gatwick Express rake on, but it looks more interesting with the 73 pushing rather than pulling. It just looks like a train, the coaches. So by easing out the curves, we can run more modern stock. And hopefully we can start close coupling a lot of stuff as well, because there's huge gaps between the coaches, and that has to be because they just won't round the curves otherwise. So we've rewired it because while Graham's layouts scenically are fantastic, his wiring leaves a lot to be desired, I must admit. He was using telephone jumper wire, so single core wire, which every time you move the layout, a wire broke or it fell off or what have you. So we completely rewired it with multi-core cable, multi-core wire. So that's all been done. Point motors have all been replaced and rewired. We've simplified it slightly as well. It was not that this layout can be overly complicated, but because we were having issues with the wiring, as I said, Graham's wiring is not the best. So we've looked at it, we stripped it all off, and we completely rewired it and made things a lot more easier and to understand. So if something does happen when we're on a show, it's easy to fix. It has happened in the past where we've had an issue with the layout at a show, and we've had me and Tim Hitch sat underneath this layout, scratching our head, trying to work out where these bloody wires went, because they just went all over the place. So now they're in proper runs underneath. We use proper color scheme throughout, and it's so much simpler. We started the extension probably about 2 years ago, designing it and planning it and cutting wood, and then obviously lockdown happened, so it's just sat at the club room. Now we're starting to go back. We're hoping that we can make a start and get that finished. The boards are built, we've just got to build the legs, tie it up to the layout, and then take the track up and start laying track. So hopefully that will be done hopefully within the next 12 months. We don't intend to do anything on the scenic section at all. It will be purely, as Carl says, fiddle yard and fiddle yard only. How we box that fiddle yard in, we haven't decided yet. We just want to get it up and get it work, ease those curves, get more stock on it. Which means obviously then that also means that I've got to start building more EMUs, but you know, hey ho. We have a 4 set, but that's the only thing commercial that we have for the layout. although a couple of us have Brighton bells. I've got a proper one, which is in blue-grey. My colleague has got one in umber and cream, which he reckons is the right colours, but I don't agree with him, but there you go. So we do backdate it slightly. There's a couple of giveaways, obviously, on the layout, in the fact that there's an ATM outside the bank and there's a speed camera. However, nobody's really noticed that when they've seen green, steamy things going up and down. Nobody's really noticed that that there's an orange-clad guy on the track bed. There's a speed camera and there's an ATM. Nobody's noticed, so we kind of get away with it. We could bring it forward as well if we wanted to. We did have a 442 on it, but Tim managed to drop it and it's never worked properly since. It was his. So I've got all the bits to build one of those. So that's on the round to it list as well. And it fits just nicely in here, the 442. It just fits, you know, it's one of those layouts where any more than sort of 5 or 6 coaches just looked really wrong. Even though obviously in real life there would be more than 5 or 6 coaches, it just looked really wrong. I don't know, we've been taking the mickey and talking about cake scale, but the great thing about Engage is that you can have full length trains in a smaller space. But on this layout, a full length train going through here would just look silly, because you'd have 2 or 3 coaches disappearing in the tunnel at that end, while you still got 2 or 3 coming out of here, and it just looks silly. So 6 coaches is just the right amount. The loco just disappears under the tunnel at that end as the last coach is appearing out here. And the illusion just looks right. There's a bit of damage on the layout that we need to fix. This bridge parapet here has got damaged, but you know, for a layout that's 20 odd years old, that's about it really. And that's purely because it's just Graham's usual method of card and paper, and it's right on the edge, so it gets knocked quite a lot of the time. We are looking to get that repaired, but the problem that we have is that the brick paper that he did it with is no longer available. So if we try and use a modern brick paper, it just won't look right. We could trim it off and just build a whole new parapet for it and then try and weather it back. That's something that we might try. We'll probably try and build it first and see how we go, see what it looks like. It's fairly simple structure. And then it's just a bit of wear and tear really. It's very dusty, but we've tried to get that dust off, but we don't want to use anything damp or wet, because obviously all of Graham's stuff is card and brick paper. So that's it really. That's Hedges Hill. Still going strong. We still take it out. It's still desirable for people. It's still available for exhibitions. Normally we'll take it along with the Engage Society stand, because it's a nice simple layout. It'll fit in the van with all the Engage Society stuff. So if you invite the Engage Society to your shows, then they'll normally turn around and say, we can bring a layout or 2 with us if you so want. And so Hedges would normally be one of them. And one of the other guys has got a private layout, probably a continental layout, just to show what the Engage Society does. Not just British, it is continental as well. And I'm sorry to talk about foreign muck, but I could be talking about steam, and that's completely frozen now, hasn't it? Yep, there it goes. Oh no, it's come back to life. No, it's gone. Okay, bin that. Bear with me a second. I'll just restart the video on integrated webcam. There we go. Yeah, it was getting a bit, it was getting a bit warm, so I think that was killing it. So yeah, so that's it. So that's Hedges Hill. Any questions?
Neal, you said you changed the points. Was that because the previous point motors were useless as well? And what did you change them to?
No, they were just they were just getting old. They were 20 odd years old. So we've just replaced them with Pico motors, but we've put the green ones in, the low current ones. So hopefully try and make them a bit more reliable. And some of the switches were starting to fail as well. We were getting short all the time. So we replaced the electro switches on them as well. Just to make it, just to bring it, put new stuff on it really.
Yeah.
We also replaced the third rail on it because a lot of the third rail was coming off. And although the third rail is not strictly correct because it doesn't sit above the normal running rail height like it should do, we've had to sink it below because the modern stock's got so much stuff hanging off the bottom of it. It's catching on the third rail.
Yeah.
So we couldn't run the modern Farish 47s on it either without trimming all the sand pipes off. So what we decided to do, we removed all the rail, and then all this is all 2mm code 40. And then that is just glued straight or just stuck straight onto the sleepers. It's not correct, doesn't sit above the rail height, the running rail height, but it then allows us to use more modern stock.
Yeah, and it looks
the wheel
right.
profile is better. And it looks, and you can see third rail.
Yeah.
So
we had the same problem. We had the same problem on Abbey Road, Neil. With course with the LU four rails, it was a nightmare. And over the years, when you're cleaning the track, you used to pull it up. When trains derailed, they pulled it up. We stopped using the. Well, actually, you only had to. You could use the, because obviously in 2mm, you haven't got any means of fixing it to the track apart from using your own pins, have you?
No, that's right. We tried to do that as well. I sat there, but trying to solder nickel silver rail to steel pins, I ended up with more solder in the web of the rail than I did trying the bloody rail to the pins.
Tried doing that 25 years ago and just end up with burnt fingers.
Yeah. So we gave up in the end.
Well, you could use brass needlework pins.
That's true.
That's a good idea.
These.
But what we decided to do in the end was we just glued the rail straight to the sleepers.
Yeah.
Glued the rail straight to the sleepers, and that works. And that's worked quite nicely. We've not lost any. We've not ripped any up when we've been cleaning the track. It looks, you can see the third rail is on there and it looks okay. It looks pretty good.
I think in 2mm it works a treat. I mean, I know Roger, when Batman brought out the S stock, the only way the S stock will run on a proper tube layout with 4 rails is if you grind off the best part of the bottom of the bogies. They obviously missed a trick there, because of course it would have to run on a 4 rail track. But Roger took the grinder to it bravely, because you're not these models aren't cheap, as you alluded to a couple of years earlier. When you start mucking about with chassis and things, you can easily wreck it, can't you?
Absolutely. The problem that we've got now, and again Carl will attest to this, is that Farish 170s, trying to get hold of cheap 170 or even 158 chassis is just impossible now. I mean, the 3 chassis that I've got, I don't think I've paid more than about 40 quid each for them now. Now you'd be lucky if you'd have to pay over 100 quid for them. Even it's ludicrous, absolutely ridiculous. But that's a whole nother topic that we see with the alleyway that we don't want to go down. So trying to build EMUs, I wish Farish would re-release the 4 set, or they'd do something else with the chassis that they've got. It's a perfectly workable chassis. The 4 set chassis would fit under so many different models. It's unbelievable, but they just won't take the plunge. And I don't know why. You try and pick up a 4 set. You can't pick up a 4 set now for less than 200 quid. And they were what, 90 quid when they came out? 95 quid when they first came out?
Same with the larger scale version.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
And why they picked the version they did, I have no idea.
No, I don't
Limited
either.
themselves to 2 livers, and that was it.
Yeah, exactly. Blue and green. Well, no, three.
Blue and grey.
You know, blue, green, green with yellow end, or green without. You know, so it was. You know, they, as you say, they just limited themselves. If they'd done the research,
They do that and then say they don't sell very well
absolutely, yeah, exactly.
and end up
Exactly.
being heavily discounted, and then shops full of them at stupid prices that nobody wants to pay.
No, exactly.
But what do we know? You know.
No, precisely. No, no,
Just to
absolutely right.
just to close on that point just there, this is why now anything they've brought out in the last 3 or 4 years, there's only one run of it, and it's not a case of I'll get that later. If you see it, get it, because they're making stuff in much lower numbers than what they used to.
Well,
To
yeah,
avoid this situation. Engage too.
yeah. Well, yeah. No, absolutely, absolutely. You know, but not everybody can afford the new prices. I mean, the Mark II Fs that they've just brought out, they're 50 quid a shot. Even in Engage, 49.95. I've got 20 Farish ones. Or no, I will rephrase that. I've got 20 Farish Mark IIs. I won't say which version they are, because they're not actually a version. But if I wanted to replace those with the new Mark IIs, I couldn't do it all in one hit. And now you can't get them for love nor money. So,
You can get plenty of first-class ones.
sorry?
Get plenty of first-class ones.
Yeah, and again, that's something else. They don't think about what they're producing. Dapol were the prime example when they bought the HSTs out, the first HSTs out. Everybody turned around, every modeler turned around to them and said, you need to do is produce the power cars, buffet, and a TGS in a set, and then just mass produce firsts and seconds. What do? Power car, a first, a second, and another power, and a trailing car.
All of them have made that mistake. Airfix did that with the original Mark II Ds, and back in the 70s made the same amount of each type.
Yeah.
But you only need half the amount of 2 types as opposed to the other type. And then the ones you can only buy now are the first class and the brakes. Same with the Bachmann Mark IIs. They've all done it. They just don't.
They
I
don't
don't
learn.
know. You know, we're not manufacturers. We don't know how it works, but it's like, yeah, to us it's
No,
easy.
they don't. Yeah, they just don't learn, do they? I mean, the HST set, you only need one buffet and one
Yeah.
TS. But
Anyway, we must be
first-
careful. We're heading into our own web territory.
Yes, we are, aren't we? Yes, I do apologise. So anyway, back to Hedges.
Okay, can I just jump in? That's
Can I say something, Paul, on the lines of manufacturers making the wrong coaches? How about a bit of cut and shut 'em? Just a little bit of a pub for my session.
well said, Clive.
That was almost shoehorned in, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. You know, there you go. I served it, and then Clive battered it straight. Well done, Clive.
This is how team works.
Teamwork.
Now,
Yeah, that's it.
As we've got